Good evening, everybody. Welcome out tonight to our weekly members training that we do every Wednesday night. We've had Teresa has been helping us do these lately. She's out tonight, and it's actually a good chance for us to do things. Well, we actually needed to record another podcast episode, and so that's what we're going to. I think that's kind of the plan tonight, anyway. Is that we're basically going to do things a little bit different from what we normally do, in that we're going to go and look at things like we normally do. So it'll probably seem like a regular training for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. We usually record when we record the podcast, don't record them live, but we thought it'd be kind of fun. We'd done it one other time in the past to do it with the weekly webinar. We go over some good things. We're going to go look at some auctions. We're going to talk about some different topics and review different deals that are coming up in upcoming auctions, and also go through and talk about some pretty good training materials. So I think it'll be a good training for tonight.
Yeah, so yeah, this will all be recorded, and then we can use different bits of it here as we want. But as we go throughout this, though, you're welcome to ask your questions there in the question section, and we can we can answer them in the final part of the podcast, where we kind of go through a Q&A.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have a Q&A that we can hit up any of your questions that you guys have on some of the different topics that we'll talk about tonight.
Yeah, something else a little bit different too. We're also sharing. We're doing our cameras here, which we do for the podcasts anyway, at least for starting them up, and part of the time we'll do it. So yeah, I think with that being said, here let's start the podcast here. Excellent. Welcome out, everybody, to Tax Sale Titans weekly podcast. This is episode 7, and I'm Shade Ferre with Tax Sale Support here with Stephen Swenson, as usual. And yeah, we've got some great things to talk about. It's been a while since we have done a podcast, and we're excited to do one. And we're also excited to cover stuff and to get more information out there.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be trying to do a couple of these each month, and also have some other videos and trainings that we have prepared as well. So we're excited that we actually have some live people here tonight, because we've invited our program members to attend the podcast. As far as any news or announcements, we really have the biggest news is just the 3 days that we have each week. Coming up as members of the website Tax Sale Support, you guys automatically get 50% off. And so instead of spending $999, the 3-day ticket is only $499. So it's definitely a benefit. We really try to take care of you at these events and spend 3 days going over every aspect of tax sale investing.
Yeah, lunches are included on those days, and we have a lot more time to cover a lot more information, and because really tax sale investing is a part of real estate, and but at the same time, though, there's also quite a bit of tax sale investing too, just on its own, and so it's hard to get across the information in such short periods of time, so it gives us more time to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as the training tip of the week, what we want to go over this week is the 3 county record types. We want to talk about how, as us as tax sale investors, really research these tax sale properties, and 80–90% of the research that we do is going to be held on the county websites.
Yeah, that's always going to be where we get the most accurate information. It's the primary source of all of our information, and what we're gathering about the property. And so, yeah, there are a couple of different types of records that we generally access, and those records are usually either the treasurer or the tax collector. And usually those records are related to things like the payment of taxes, assessor records, which are all related to the property assessment and how it's valued. And so the assessment records are incredibly relevant and valuable to us. Then we also access the recorders or the clerk's records. Sometimes these are called official records or legal records. You could refer to them to basically the same office that records deeds is the same office we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to break down each one of these offices and talk a little bit about them tonight. Starting with the treasurer. It could be called the treasurer, it could be called the tax collector. In some states, it could be called the tax claim office. But whoever's in charge of collecting the property taxes is usually going to be the treasurer tax collector. That same office, not always is the case, but that same office many times is also going to be in charge of the tax sale. So even in some states that are tax lien states, obviously the tax collector, but even in tax deed states, it could still be the treasurer, the treasurer or tax collector that's actually holding the tax deed auctions.
Yeah, in fact, it's almost always going to be a good idea to go into the tax history of the property because that is going to show you essentially, what's been paid and what hasn't been paid. That's really where we can determine what the true roll up of the property is. So what the two, I mean, how much has not been paid here in delinquent taxes that the county's trying to get. And so, yeah, it's very important there when we're looking at the tax records so that we can see which years were actually paid and which years weren't paid. That's ultimately what's going to cost with the property is a lot of past due taxes that are owed. Which with tax liens we call roll up. With deeds, we just see a deed that has a crazy high opening bid compared to its value. To the point where some can be upside down; they're not worth bidding on.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we're talking about tax lien investing in particular, the tax collector records are going to be real important because with the tax deed, just like Shade mentioned, that opening bid amount is going to be all the delinquent taxes. So except for maybe going to the treasurer's office to get the tax sale list and the tax sale information, we're going to be using the tax collector to find out things about the property. In fact, on that slide that we were just looking at, it had information there about different liens. And so you can see some of the history of the certificates from different years past and how much we're gaining interest. And so when Shade was talking about the roll up, really that's where we can find out if there is any additional back taxes, because if we do the foreclosure, if we end up going through the foreclosure process, we're going to be in charge of paying all of those delinquent taxes off.
Yeah, really, whether we're looking at liens or deeds, it's important for us to know, what has happened with historically with the taxes on the property because, there's generally going to be money that's outstanding or that's owed on it. And so, yeah, the tax payment history is really important. The assessment records in most cases now are linked directly to the online auctions or to the lists, and so it makes it relatively easy. You can just click on a link to pull up all the information about the property, and you don't really have to go in and use parcel search tools so much. But we still do that all the time. We use parcel search tools to plug in the information, and generally the fastest way to find things like the assessor's uh, uh, the parcel search tool in the assessor's website is usually with just a basic search engine. If you type in the county name and the assessor, we can usually pull it right up, and from there we can usually pull up not only the information related to how the property is valued, but also the mapping. That's where all the mapping is attached. And the sales history of the property, is attached to it. Usually, there's a lot of really valuable information here.
Yeah, yeah, like Shay talked about with the parcel search tool, many times it could be connected to the record. If not, then we'll find that tool and look up it using the parcel number. But really, the assessor records is where we're going to make a determination if we're going to move on to this to the in our research or not. In fact, in our stages of due diligence, we teach our members 3 stages of due diligence, and in stage one of the first steps is going to the assessor record because as we review that, Shade already talked about how we're going to see stuff like the sales information. We're also going to have an idea of the assessed value, the location, the breakup of the value, if it's land value or improvement value, how many bedrooms, how many baths, if it's a structure, when it was built, how many square feet, and the size of the lot. All of that information, including links to many times the GIS maps, are going to be connected to the county assessor's records.
Yeah, in fact, we kind of treat due diligence, we do it in kind of waves or in cycles because the whole idea here is not to waste a lot of time. It's to try to save yourself time. And so, you try to weed out properties where you can and not invest a lot of time into them until you're sure that they're going to work. And so it's one of the reasons why pulling up property records and the actual property assessment is so valuable. It's because the information alone from the property assessment is usually enough to tell us whether we have the potential for a deal or not. Now information like, for instance, if we could pull up the tax rate, the tax collector information, and it could basically put a damper on all of this information that we see here. But if we can determine the information here about the property, we can figure out if there's a deal possible.
Yeah, as you guys can see, we're going to have a ton of information here. The address listed there, the book and page number, the last time it was sold. Then we'll get into the ownership information and the sales information. In fact, when we go do our recorder search and search the legal records, that's really where we're going to be taking the names and information. So if we were to decide that we were interested in this property, we would have to research that owner's name. We can see that this particular property is a condominium, about 1,000 square feet. Had a value of around 67,000. So it's a small condo. We've got an idea of when it was built in 1972, and 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yeah, and essentially, and we can also learn more information about it as we want. Like we can click on links to get maps, and the maps, the GIS maps alone are kind of a whole area that we use for is to gain information about the property. The GIS mapping is going to tell us where it's physically located at, make sure it's accessible by public streets, let us know what the boundaries are for the property, and in a lot of cases there are tools that are built into a lot of the GIS systems now, like sales, like sales tools, are built into these now, so that you can look through a GIS county map and you can click on one of the layers in it, and you can pull up all of the sales for 2023 and all the sales from 2022 and 2021, and so that it makes it a lot easier, especially if you're doing something like let's say you're trying to find comps for land. That can be very helpful, when you're looking for something like that. Or, in fact, the GIS records have really something that's probably changed the most over the last, 10 or 20 years. Before GIS maps with plat maps, it was a nightmare because you had to try to figure it out, and you were, you couldn't always be sure. With the GIS mapping, we can learn quite a bit more about the property, and they usually attach everything else to it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Shay talked about how we can use them to figure out price values, but we can also use them because they may have floodplains overlays and topographical maps. In fact, we've saved ourselves from doing bad deals because a lot of times we're not going to send somebody out to take a photo of a piece of land that we're going to be buying by using the topographical map, where looking at the overhead, it may look like there's not that much of an incline, but as we look at the topographical map, we can see no, actually it's rising in elevation by quite a bit, which really is going to make it maybe unbuildable. And so just by using the topographical map has saved us from doing bad deals versus a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely, it has. In fact, it's a good idea to look at, especially if you're in an area that has some terrain to it. If it's not very flat, if it's got hills to it, it's a really good idea to pull up a topographical map so you can figure out what kind of elevation changes you're looking at. But the third kind of record here, the recorder or the clerk's records, said that they could be referred to maybe as official records or legal records. Um, this tends to be the last thing that we search, because this is after we've already determined that the property can work, and the numbers are there. It's when we're trying to make sure there aren't any additional risks that are there with the property, liens that might be attached to it, or other things, mortgage or judgment, or if it can also tell us quite a bit about the history of the property as we're going through this process as well. But the way we do that is by digging into the deeds a little bit, and the ownership history of the property itself. And so when we go into the recorder's records, or the clerk's records, we can generally see everything related to the property and what's happened to it. So we can usually see exactly how it got to where it is.
Yeah, really, we're going to be using the assessor records to help us pull up the recorder or clerk's records, because what we're looking for is for any type of government lien that could survive the foreclosure. We know that tax sale properties go through a judicial foreclosure, and in that judicial foreclosure, things like mortgages, judgments are erased from the property. But what can stick are those government issued liens. And so when we're talking about governmental liens, there's really three major types. There's some other types that in certain states could stick. First one being an IRS lien. With an IRS lien, it's more of a waiting period. It's not like a state or a city lien. Essentially, we have to fill out a notification letting the IRS know we bought the property. They have 120 days to either redeem it, meaning pay us off what we owe, pay us off what we paid and take ownership, or release the lien. In most cases, we found that they'll go ahead and release the lien. The second type is state liens. They can um, stick to the property as well, but the most common type, and Shade will get into them a little bit, is going to be some type of local municipality, whether that be city or county.
Yeah, and also one thing that's kind of nice is that there are some counties that will actually send out the IRS notices before they do the auctions. And so, by the time the auctions happen, it's already been, a set time period there. And in fact, in some cases that they can get them cleared. That's one nice thing is with IRS liens, we don't have to pay it. That's one good thing is when we see that it's not an amount we're ever going to have to pay. It's just it's just a matter of whether or not they're going to take the property. State liens, though, we do see in some cases, it kind of depends on the state. Some states have things like income tax, that they could issue liens for. We've seen that, but again, not always necessarily against properties. Um, we can find those types of liens though. But by far, the most common thing that we come across though are liens that are issued against the property because it's a mess, or because they have to cut the grass, or because there's junk or stuff laying there, or because the building or the structures no longer meets code. If it no longer meets code, like for instance, if a property is deemed unsafe and is condemned, well, that's it's a legal process that it goes through to deem the property as an unsafe structure, and that they need to make sure nobody goes into it, and which is a step before they go through the process to tear it down, which is another one of the liens I listed here, demolition lien. A demo lien, if you see liens that are for large amounts, 12, 15,000, $20,000, a lot of times what we're looking at are the buildup of multiple years of taxes and something like a demolition lien against a property. And best way to prove that out is when you go there and you look and see that they have improvement value there, but the home's no longer there. Or you can see that the remnants of what used to be a lot, and sometimes we can even see exactly when they took it down.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, with the county or a city or a nuisance type lien, that's going to always be connected to the property. They're going to be using the property as collateral. With something like a state lien, depending on the state, they may or may not attach the property to the lien. But with a county or a city type lien, those are always going to be using the property as collateral for that lien and attaching that property using the legal description to that specific lien. So how do we find these search tools? Well, we already talked about the person that's recording the deeds, the mortgages, the judgments is usually going to be the office that keeps the records. In most states, it'll be connected to the clerk, to the recorder's office. And we talked a little bit about before using the same type of tools to find the legal records that we use in finding the assessor records. We can go to the county website and look for the recorder's office or the clerk's office, or we can do a quick Google search using keywords like legal records, court records, liens, deeds, mortgages, and pull up the specific county that way.
Yeah, which also there are sometimes a couple of different types of searches you can do. So, I used to, just think of them all as legal records, but you've got a couple of different kinds of legal records that you have here. You have, and I guess so. It depends. Sometimes when we're looking through, we'll be looking through all the different types of records, including, civil, criminal, traffic tickets and everything. Sometimes it's all included in one, and sometimes they have them separated. Like in this case, where we have, the county here has separated them into what they have, court record searches and official record searches. So they kind of have their deeds and mortgages and everything separated from their criminal and civil cases. And so in this case, we would search the official records there, and that's where we would be able to find liens against property.
Yeah, exactly. Like Shade said, sometimes they'll combine them, sometimes they'll separate them. In this case, we have a couple of different ways that we're going to search it. First of all, we're going to search it from the owner's information, from using the owner's name. We talked about that with the assessor records, and that's the reason we're going to use the assessor records to research this property. Once we search the owner's name, we'll usually just go ahead and search the owner's name by itself and try to pull up everything we can against the owner. But let's say that we had an owner that owned a lot of real estate and had a lot of records. Maybe they had 1,000 records, and we've seen this. In fact, we just had this happen this week. In doing research for one of our buying tours where we take students to an auction where there was, literally 1,500, 1,800 records on it. Well, in that case, then we can narrow down that search by searching by the document type. So I was able to search by lien and state lien and federal lien and different categories, and then also search for any releases of those liens. That way, instead of trying to go through 1,800 records, which would be, nearly impossible or take a lot of time to do, I was able to narrow that down and then look for liens that were issued against that particular property.
Yeah, really, what we're trying to do when we're searching through these records is save ourselves time. And so a lot of what we do kind of depends on how much, how many records pull up. If we go and plug the name in there, and we only get back 5 records, then it makes it very easy for us to go through those and to quickly see whether or not there are liens against the property, at least, or if there were any liens that were placed against the property during the time that they owned it. That's one important part about when we're doing those record searches is that, um, you know, it's one of the reasons why when we're looking at properties, we might need to research and go back multiple owners depending on how they bought it. If they bought it with like a quick claim deed, they could have bought it and it could have had liens against it when they bought it, and you wouldn't know because that's the nature of quick claim deeds. But if it's something like a warranty deed that we come up against, then we know that it was free and clear at the time that it was purchased. And so, at that point, we know that we have one owner that, and that's the only name that we're going to need to search because, when they bought it, it was free and clear.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's something that we teach our students how to be able to do is to go through that process and do what we call researching the chain of title. In some circumstances, if it was issued with a warranty deed last, it's going to be a lot more simple than if it's been sold multiple times over the last few years using a quick claim deed. But we're going to do all of that searching from this record search tool, which will pull up all of the records that are attached to that individual name. Sometimes I'll even use the book and page number to pull up deeds or information or see if anything's connected to that specific book and page number. And what the book and page number is kind of the number that's used for the deed. It's like the parcel number for the deed itself. So in the past, they actually used to have books and they would open up book 76 and page 65, and that would be where your deed would be located. They still use that same system, but now instead of having just physical records that you had to go to the county courthouse, most of this stuff's online and available for us to research.
Yeah, yeah, I think in fact, the best way to really teach or to go through and show you this is to demonstrate it, and that's what we're going to do here. In fact, we'd like to go and take a look at the upcoming deal of the week opportunities here. We always like to cover upcoming deals or deals that are either happening or just recently happened. And this week we're going to be talking about one that's coming up here soon in Angelina County, Texas. So we're going to go and take a look at that auction and some of the properties that are coming up in it. That's coming up in less than a few weeks here. So those properties are there. We're going to go online to check them out.
Yeah, really, and this has really opened up Texas to investors. Up until a few years ago, Texas really you had to be there in person for all of their auctions. But now more and more counties, each month there's more counties that are moving over to the online system, which gives us an ability to invest in Texas without needing to be there in person.
All right, now I'm going to turn off my webcam here for a minute. And I'm going to pull up a couple of things here. All right. So the first thing I'm going to pull up here is the Aransas. I think that's Aransas. I think that's how they pronounce it. Oh, that's the link. Let's see here. You know what? We can go over and grab Angelina here. Hold on.
Oh,
Although these ones all look pretty good.
yeah, maybe I was looking at this one. Maybe I just put the name wrong.
You know, I was gonna say, man, if Angelina's looking pretty good too, we've got, you know, there's lots of good sales here. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all if there's some good looking properties in the Angelina sale as well. You know, in fact, it could be worth checking out. Can you tell by looking at it?
Yeah, it was this county I was looking at.
Oh, okay.
In fact, if we go over to the left-hand side, we can see the external links. There's the property appraiser, there's the clerk of court, where we'd go do, you know, and look for recorder records, but we can click on the property appraiser and pull up that website.
And we've got a couple different options here. So we could actually directly access the GIS maps if we wanted here. They also have the online portals here and pay taxes online. I wonder if those are the same thing. This is a search tool, you know, which kind of gives us the option to, you know, to search, you know, to search records here. I don't know if I'm looking at the right one there or not.
Looks like a different search tool than I was looking at before. Got
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
confused. Let's go down and grab the number off that first property and see if we're able to pull it up.
Let's see the cause number.
It's the account
Oh, the
number.
account number. Oh, okay, so that's a nice little number. So would that be under ID, or do you just plug it in and it works?
It's a different search tool than I was using before, so I don't know. I just try to pull them on ball.
Oh, good. It does work. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let me zoom in just a bit. We've got get the property pulled up here. And let's see here if we can, for the map, let's go. I was hoping I had a layer here.
I think you've got to click on the map itself and pull up the map, but let's look at the
Uh,
property real quick and then we'll pull up the map. So one thing that we always check and look, and this is for a piece of land, uh, but we'll check to see is the site address and the owner address, is it the same, is it different? We can see that this is obviously a different address.
yeah, which is always going to be the case with vacant land. You know, here we've got the mailing address for the owner. So the owner lives in Corpus Christi, and you know, not at this property. But yeah, always important though whenever we're looking at properties, especially, you know, with improved properties, something we're always checking out though.
And on the right-hand side up there, we can also see the improvement value. So there is, you know, $660. I think that that's just a pad. There used to be a mobile home pad. This is a mobile home lot, if I remember right. But if we scroll down, we can get a little bit more into the history. But there we can see that there's a little bit of value. If it was a home, then it would be split up.
Yeah, we can also see the legal description of the property can be handy too. We sometimes use that when we're looking to do searches because sometimes if we're looking at like a lot of liens, then the way that you can, you know, you'll be able to locate yours from other liens will be using something like the legal description on the property. So that is something that comes up in many cases here. Oh, there's the trailer pad you mentioned that's on there.
Yeah, we can see the size, 0.34 an acre, 1,500 square feet, the improvement value, and I think the sales history is below that as well.
Yeah, there we've got the warranty deed in 1997. They don't give us a direct link to it, but we've got, you know, we can see, we can pull it up. We've got the volume and page number.
Yeah, exactly. So we could pull it up if we need to. The fact that it was issued with a warranty deed way back in 1997, though, is good news for us, meaning that this property owner's owned it for a long time, and the last time it sold with a warranty deed. So it doesn't have multiple owners that we'd have to research.
Well, that's interesting. So this says indicated amount may not reflect delinquent tax due beyond a 5-year history. So they're basically saying this one can only go back 5 years, which is probably, you know, like how far back they're limited by their records, but you can have properties that could have more than that in tax owed. So this property probably hasn't had anything paid in a long time. In fact, yeah, we know going back to at least 2012, so it actually did go back further than 5 years for us. There's basically saying that they can't guarantee it, but it does show us clear back to 2012. So it shows us like 12 years worth of information on the history there of the property, and if we were to add that up, that's probably what we're looking at with the opening bid.
Yeah, that's what I would assume as well. Let's take a look at the map real quick.
And it's going to be the interactive map that we're going to be looking at here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the base maps here first, and we can decide here, Eagle View. All right, so there we have at least an overhead view here with 2023 images, and so we can see what the property is here, where it's located at. We can see it's accessible by a public road here. So let me move this thing around a little bit. So there's the property here. You said, how big is it, Ian?
I think it's 0.35 an acre. See where there's kind of the grass pad between the trees. I think there used to be a cement pad there, and there used to be a mobile home on the lot many years ago. But it's been vacant, essentially a piece of vacant land.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. There was one right there.
Yeah, and I think that maps also gave you the address as well. You could look underneath. Go back to the view map section. To the record that we were looking at, the other record.
No, this one?
No, that one. And go to the view map again up at the top, because I think it had the Google map. I just wanted to see if it take you directly to where it's at, or if it just throws up Google Map for you.
Yeah, it pulls it up there for you. So we can get, that's an image from March of 2022, and yeah, we can see there are trees that have built up, grown up there in front of whatever used to be there. So yeah, that's the lot right there.
And I would assume it's a buildable lot, but we wouldn't just trust it's a buildable lot. Before buying it, we would go ahead and, look into the zoning code and make sure that it's a buildable lot and that we can use it.
Yeah. In fact, that would be the main thing that we would find out to make sure on it. It has good value though, and it's opening up at 13,000, which are still doable numbers. I mean, at that amount, I think, it could still be a deal on the property here. But again, we'd look more into it. There's more properties here too. We've got this one right here that's right below it.
Would also check for any government liens on that lot as well.
Yeah, we would. Now let's see what this is. This one is, this looks like a home that's on the water.
Yeah, in fact, we can look a little more into it when we look into the county records as well.
Yeah, let's pull
What
up
kind
that.
of value does it have?
They're saying 301. They're saying they're opening up at $14,000. So this one would have a high chance of redeeming, or a higher chance than than a lot of other properties would. Let's see if
This is also where we can do a pre-foreclosure strategy on a property like this and buy it before it actually comes to the tax sale.
yeah. So let's see. I think they're going to have a section down here. So here's all the improvements built in '83.
Yeah, one thing that's kind of interesting about those improvements is you can see some of the different improvements. So you can see obviously the main area, but you can see there's a swimming pool and a hot tub,
Yeah,
the dock, and you can see which year some of this stuff. You can also see a garage, was constructed in 2002.
yeah, yeah. The land itself they value at 192. That's interesting. So
It's actually the land's more valuable than the improvement.
yeah, it really is. The land is more invaluable than the improvement. That's interesting. Now this is also interesting when we look at the history here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
You can see that there was a special warranty deed, a quit claim,
Hmm.
and this, it's very possible that we would have to reach back to the warranty deed in 1995, under, that Wayne and Mary Lou. We might have to go ahead and research back to them. So at this case, we may have to research three owners, to looking for any leads, because when Cornell sold it to the next owner, essentially they sold it using a quitclaim deed, which means that there could still be liens that would attach from one owner to the next owner.
Yeah, well, what we can also see here that, yeah, that in the last case there, in 2017, yeah, that was just when it went to the special warranty deed, it was just for that life estate when it switched over. And so that was the change there for the special warranty deed, and that was when they purchased it here.
Yeah, really, I guess it's more of just two people, because it went, from being sold, it was in the person's name, to essentially being underneath the life estate.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, we could search those names, and then what's nice too is in Texas they automatically include that tax record in this, so we don't have to pull up another page to see the full history. It actually gives us the complete history. So what we're looking at here is actually it's a partial lien because they paid once a year, but they didn't pay twice a year on those years, and
Yeah, they owned
it's,
part
it's
of
only
2020.
it's only those 2 years in that one right there.
Yeah, so what is that, a 2019, a 2021, and a 2022?
Well, 2022 is one way they paid.
Oh,
2023.
2023. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, but yeah, that basically kind of explains why you've got pretty good value there and a relatively low opening bid amount, on that property. That's kind of interesting. Let's see. Hang on, just let me go back up here. Do we want to do a search here on the property, you think?
Let's just go ahead and look. I'm just interested to see what the market value on it is.
Let's use a couple of different sources here.
I'd like to see how close it is to what the county assesses.
Whoa, they value it at 509, so they're way over. Now let's see how close Redfin is on it. Well, and they can't find it. No, it's probably, I'll bet it's because of the way it's typed out.
Yeah, you could probably scroll down in there and maybe find it. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's worth close to that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's just a vacant lot there for 259. But it has it has the improvement there. Oh, it maybe includes that thing. I
Yeah,
don't know, but yeah, it's pretty much just like the dock. It will go for 259 there, which makes sense when the homes are selling for $1 million. I think that's the area though that we're looking at. They just don't have all the properties.
yeah, you could. I haven't connected to all of them.
Yeah.
But if we were to really interested in buying this property, we would do a full comparative market analysis and look for the properties that have sold next to this property and use them as comparables. Plus, with a structured property, we're always going to get an on-site evaluation before
Yeah.
buying.
Yeah. We would need to get an on-site evaluation on it. Yeah, built in '83, it could be a good candidate though. Well, yeah, that's kind of interesting. That's really valuable. I mean, despite the house, like the value of the house almost doesn't even matter. The lot is so valuable. Lots for, I mean, the lot is worth so much there.
Should we try checking one of these other properties? Let's check that one for this 20 grand worth 88.
All right, let's see what this one is. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here is our property here. And we can see the mailing address here. So the first thing we'll notice there is that the site address and the mailing address are different.
You can also see underneath the property value that it's just land.
Yeah, it is just land value.
This is really where, the maps can come into such help.
Oh, and here, so it's some acreage. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
well, even the zoning said undeveloped land, so I'm interested to look at the GSI map.
Oh, it's 5.2 acres. That's what it is. 226,000 square feet. And
See if it has legal access. It kind of looks like it does. You can see kind of that road there.
yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, it does look like it. It looks like it has legal access here. Yeah, that's a dirt road, but it's still a road. Now let's zoom out just a little bit here so we can see about where it's laid out. So all right, those are, that's a river right there. Is that the Gulf? Oh
And
yeah, that is the Gulf. Yeah, not far away at all.
one thing that's interesting is in that location, there's homes out there as well. So you can see that some people have used these to make homesteads. So, chances are it's buildable, usable, 5 acres. We'd go ahead and check all of the zoning on it. Also maybe check for flood zones and things like that.
Yeah, and other thing we would check here is, let's see, so here's where you've got, the total amount owed in taxes on the property. $1,000 in taxes here, a month on it here. Oh, but the ownership deed history doesn't show anything.
My only assumption, well, I was going to say maybe it's because it's so old, but what we'd have to do in that situation is look up the book and page number in the clerk's office to try to see if we can find a deed on it, because that is kind of interesting. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, yeah, that is weird. And we could search up the name there of, but yeah, that is kind of weird. Maybe they've owned it for a very long time. All I could think on it. These are probably lots too. Oh yeah, in fact, you can see these are on Joey, Drive. So they're, on that same road and probably in the same area. These are probably all lots. Each one of these ones, for starting out at 10 or 11,000. In fact, some of these, well, these ones actually
Probably
look,
the same, could be the same owner.
yeah, that'd be interesting. They probably really could be. There's a really fast way to find out. We can click on that, and yeah, it is the same owner.
Uh,
So
Hero Realty.
yeah, so what that means is that you could have a bunch of properties there that could either all go to the auction at the same time, or they could all end up kind of redeeming at the same time. That's probably the case here with a bunch of these.
I almost kind of wonder if these could be reoffers, because with that many back taxes, they should have gone to the tax sale before now.
Yeah, I think they probably are reoffers as well. And that in Texas they have they offer up properties, regular tax sale properties, but if they don't sell at the auction, the county will hang on to them and then will sometimes throw them into the auction again when auctions come up, but not necessarily every auction. They just put them into some auctions, and so I think that's what we're looking at here too. Are some properties that were probably reoffers, and but all of these must be owned by that same owner, I'll bet, or at least a bunch of these. Is that different from the number I just looked at here? Yeah, that's 561, 562. Yeah, they are.
It makes me want to look a little bit more into the market value because I'm kind of surprised, that they haven't sold yet. This may be some of these websites have only counties have just moved over from an online auction to from an on-site auction to an online auction, and there's actually you can get pretty good deals when a county does that a lot of times because not all of the most not a lot of people know that it's an online auction yet. Plus, you have the regulars that would go to the auction, and only some of them may move over to do the online auctions.
Yeah, like every single one of these with addresses are like big acreage of land, like 2 or 3 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres of land is, the ones that have value on them. The last one, uh, let's see, this one right here. So this one has an estimated minimum of 72 and says it's valued at 179. Let's see what this one, oh, wrong one. And this one is owned by the county trustee.
It's county held.
Yeah, this is county held. And they don't have it mapped? Oh no, they do have it mapped. All right. Let's just delete that one. Let's pull up the interactive map thing here.
Looks like wetland to me.
Yeah, it's not real promising. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. What a weird lot. Like, I don't know how, I mean,
Is that a dirt road or railroad tracks? If that's a railroad tracks, you wouldn't even have.
yeah, it's railroad tracks. So
Yeah,
it's
so
not,
real.
there's access right there. But if that's a road, I don't know if that's an official road or not.
Yeah, it looks like it could be, but yeah, that's probably a property we would want to avoid.
Yeah, that one is a junk property. So there's some on here, that are worth avoiding here. They don't have addresses. One other here that doesn't have an address I'm just interested in seeing. This one's also valued at 88,000 and it is, oh, this one's actually just a half acre.
Yeah, see if it'll pull up on the. It's not even showing you the map preview.
I know it's a little bit bizarre. I think we've got a complete address here on it. Oh, it does pull it up though. Yeah, so I know this is just like a non-home site.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there could be a demolition attached. I'd check that before bidding
Oh
on it.
yeah, you can see the mailing address is the same, so this one is one that was, that was basically owner occupied.
Look at the tax history because I'll bet it's been delinquent for a while.
Yeah,
1958.
that's the oldest I've seen in a while. It was like a special warranty deed. Okay, so let's see how far back they only go back to 2013, but they were paid back then actually. It didn't start going delinquent until 2017. So it's delinquent for 2017 forward.
You can see some of the different charges that they have for county roads and flood, and the just the county itself, city lien, city taxes there, kind of all rolled up within this.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting properties though, and good records. These are really helpful records for determining or figuring out what's going on with the property. That is one nice thing about all these types of records. These assessment records or the tax collector records we're looking at, or if we're doing a search into the property deeds, those records as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we switch back over here.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Let's jump over here, get this. All right, so for our next section here for the podcast, what we want to talk about here, we're going to review bad deals reviewed, which we like to try to, if we see deals where we think people may have spent too much, or if it's a deal that we don't understand, we like to highlight those sometimes, or if they're deals that are really good deals, we like to highlight those as well. And so, this one is one that we want to take a minute to review.
Yeah, in fact, this is one of the ones where people just overpaid. This is a great property, but it doesn't make any sense why they were willing to bid up as high as they were unless they were emotionally involved. And it took two of them. It always takes two people to bid up a property to a price that doesn't make financial sense. And so if we're looking at this property, we can see that it's a condo. It's 1 bedroom, 1 bath, was 585 square feet, so it's a pretty small condo, built in 1969 with an assessed value of 179,000. Opening with an opening bid of 15,000. So that opening bid amount is great, but when we start to look into the property's value, the fact that they paid $389,000 suddenly becomes a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you can imagine, I mean, they're into it for, I mean, for what, like 100,000 over what it's valued at?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. We can see that Zillow gave it a value of 296,000. And Redfin gave it a value of 316,000. So even if we were to say it's worth 316,000 or 320,000, even to just be generous, they've still paid an extra $60,000 over market value, and we're talking about a tax deed property here, which means that there could still be things that are going to attach to the property. There could still be liens that could attach in cost. Plus, you're going to have to clear the title. We don't know what the inside condition looks like. It doesn't make any sense other than somebody getting emotionally involved to us why they would go ahead and bid up this high.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this should pay off the taxes and, have a huge overage on it, because they just paid so much. I mean, eh, why pay market? I mean, at least if you're going to spend $400,000, I guarantee you could have went out on the market, and for that money, you probably could have got a much nicer condo, um, you know, and had a warranty deed with it as well. Be able to buy it just like traditional real estate. If you're, I mean, if you're going to spend $400,000 in cash, uh, or liquid, the, you could have got something so much better, than that for the money, I think.
Yeah, well, what's kind of funny is when we talk about the overages, what the overages are is just the excess proceeds. So this started at 15,000 and sold for 389,000. Now let's say that it's a condo, so it probably doesn't have any city or county liens against it. Let's say that it doesn't have any liens against it. Well, that means that besides the $15,000 is the opening bid, the rest of that money, 360,000 of it, is going to be available to the property owner. They talk about for being in this investment strategy being, oh, what's the name?
Predatory.
Yeah, predatory. But really, property taxes have been around since the founding, and the excess proceeds is going to go back to the property owner. So in this one, the person that really won is going to be the property owner because they could have $360,000 essentially paid to them through the overage amount.
Yeah, like if you could figure out a way to get people to overpay for things, it would probably be through auctions. That you would try to get them to do it, because if they were to put this on the market, it would probably have sold for 300,000 or 315,000, maybe 320 or something, but it wouldn't have sold for 389, and that's because on the market people are like, it wouldn't meet that value. The only reason it went up that high was because, like Steve said, people were bidding or willing to pay on it.
Well, and the one that sold for 320, if it did, would have sold with a warranty deed versus a tax deed. You would have had the interior redone and remodeled. So, really, we don't know why. And what's kind of funny is there's actually been so many good deals lately that I had to kind of search to find a bad deal because we're seeing less competition right now than we did 6 months or a year ago. During the pandemic, it got kind of a little bit crazy there at some of the tax sales, and now we're starting to see it to kind of go back where there's more invested minded people there. But of course, you're always going to have the exception like this one.
You also see, the rent estimate on it is only $1,500, which is not very high considering, that kind of, $400,000 out of pocket, which is a ton of money out of pocket, for only $1,500 a month in residual. That's another problem, with this property. And another choice of condo could probably double that rent estimate.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's because it's a one bedroom, one bath that's, 585 square feet. So we're talking about a pretty tiny little condo.
Yeah, yeah, you could definitely find something probably bigger for the same money. But let's take a look at good deals that members have done and that our coaching students have done. Like Holly and Greg, they were early students of ours that we worked with, and that bought a lot of properties. In fact, they were fun to work with. They bought homes. In fact, in this case, they're talking about wholesaling. So they're talking about getting an offer on the house in Michigan, one house that they purchased there. The neighbor's interested in buying the property for his children, so we ended up wholesaling it to them for a quick sale. Like you guys say, money now is better than money tomorrow. So they were able to make $27,000 after all is said and done. And that was an awesome deal. They got creative with that deal, because I think that's the deal where they bought two houses at once, right? Oh, they've done multiple deals, and they did another deal after this where they also sold another house and did awesome on it. They've probably done deals since then, and so yeah, great to see them doing more deals.
Yeah, yeah. With that one, they were able to essentially buy the property through an online auction. And, as they were looking at it, one of the neighbors came over and asked them about it and was interested in buying it. And, it needed some work. And at that point, it was maybe worth, I think they paid maybe 15 or 16,000 for it. It was worth maybe 80 or 90,000. And it just made sense. Hey, we'll sell it to you for a discount. Maybe we're not going to make as much profit. Maybe we can make 40 or 50 if we do the rehab, but that's going to take us 6 months and this amount of cost. So it just makes more sense to be able to sell it quick, make a good return on it, put cash in your pocket so you can spend on the next deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another section here, questions from members and from subscribers, or questions even from YouTube. We get a lot of questions, and we enjoy answering questions. And so let's look at a couple of questions that we have here, and then we're also going to look at the questions you guys have asked here, and we'll go through all of them here. Okay, so they were looking at in this particular case here. First question there was related to Maryland tax liens and them redeeming.
Yeah, it's a great question. Great video. Thanks. Question: what would happen if the owner of the property pays back the lien amount before 6 months and before the foreclosure period? And that was off one of our Maryland tax lien videos. The reason I included that is because Maryland, essentially, you can start the foreclosure at 6 months, but it needs to be done within a year and a half. And so their question is what happens if that property owner pays back? And that's just where you're going to get your redemption. In fact, most of the time, that's what's going to happen is the property owner is going to pay back within that 6 months. If you start the foreclosure process, then they'll have to pay back the money, the interest, and what you put into the foreclosure. But really, that's kind of the whole point of tax liens is they'll usually go ahead and get redeemed. And in that case, you'll make your money and your interest.
Yeah, it's only a small percentage that will actually go through, and result in a foreclosure. But the redemption is where you earn a high interest rate return, which is what most people are after with the liens, is a good secure investment. And it's only on the outliers where you actually have them go fully through foreclosure. So another question here is from Vendetta. Say, hi, thanks for posting this video. I'll be checking out your website. I do have a question. I found a bunch of over-the-counter tax liens in a county here in Florida, And there are a lot of them in a, quote, new subdivision where most of the lots are vacant. All the liens are for vacant lots. There looks to be hundreds in what will be a future housing subdivision. Why would there be so many tax liens on lots here? Are those worth getting?
Yeah, this is actually kind of a great question. What's kind of interesting is this was just asked today, and today, I was actually thinking of using, as far as the deal of the week, going through and looking at some of the over-the-counter tax liens in Florida, because Florida just had their sale. But in going over it, I saw different types of properties like he's talking about. And part of the issue with properties like that is really the fact that those subdivisions have been around sometimes since the 60s or 70s, and so the fact that they may or may not get developed is kind of a big question mark because it's been so long that they haven't been developed. And in addition to that, usually these tax liens will have many other tax liens on it as well. So you really need to look and check out the market value within the area and see if there's lots in that area selling, if it's accessible. Are they paved roads, dirt roads, or is it just paper roads? All that's going to make a big difference, but would really check out the market value before purchasing these tax liens, because there could be a reason why they didn't get purchased at the tax lien sale.
Yeah, that's the one question we're always asking ourselves, with over-the-counter stuff, especially over-the-counter liens in a place like Florida, that traditionally will sell all of their liens. And so if they have a whole bunch of over-the-counter liens, they could have had those liens for years. And so we would want to be looking at the roll-up on those to see just how much roll-up, because it's probably going to be 7 years worth of roll-up on them. The maximum amount in Florida, uh, and that could still be a good deal. I mean, there are areas in Florida that we found, subdivisions that were planned a while, years ago, and that are now starting to fill in. But then there's also ones that were never, they never lifted off the ground. They never really, they were never developed fully. And so yeah, there could be a big risk there between different kinds. And yeah, the liens you're looking at against properties, when you're dealing with lots out in a place like that, they're going to charge you for stuff like dealing with sewer stuff and dealing with things, and that can result a lot of times in liens against the department doing it. Basically, liens that department will issue liens against the property, and so uh, you know, in most cases, there'll be liens like utility liens. Essentially, is kind of one way you could look at them. Is that there can be utility liens against a property, like against those types of properties. So, in addition to whatever you've got to pay in taxes, there could also be this much owed in liens. And so there's a lot to consider. Before you buy a property like that, and making sure that it has enough value there to justify paying those kinds of prices for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's where you're going to need to look at the market value. So, do a little bit more research there on those liens. They could be good, but there could be a reason why they're over the counter.
Yeah. And then last question here is, what about all these auction properties that say no trespassing and you cannot look at a property or have an inspection before buying? Is that true, or do you all go inspect properties that say no trespassing? It's kind of a funny question. So with the tax sale, one thing to keep in mind is in most cases, we don't, the property is not owned, I mean, it could still be occupied, by somebody. It hasn't officially transferred ownership there yet. And so, yeah, you can't really go into it. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't go and check out properties, because we will. In fact, if it's improved properties, we need to go by and get images of the property in order to figure out the condition of it. But we don't just necessarily ignore no trespassing signs and that kind of thing either, though. So we try to, I guess we try to use good judgment in how we approach properties. If there's property owners outside, we usually let them be, and we'll take pictures as we drive past. If it's a vacant house, obviously vacant, then sometimes we'll stop and look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Really, you can't do any type of inspection before the auction. And like Shade said, the property owner hasn't been sold yet, so it's still in the old owner's name until the actual tax deed auction takes place. That's the reason we see redemptions, is that owners are paying off those property taxes before the auction, because maybe they're still living in the home or renting the home or whatever reason. And so because of that, we can't just automatically start going through and looking or trespassing on a property that's not legally ours. So they put that in there as a disclaimer, just like we would tell you as a disclaimer that, that it would be trespassing, and if you were to go there and actually access the property, then that would essentially be against the law. But there is exceptions to that. In New York, they do have in properties that are not not occupied, they will sometimes some of the counties will have walkthroughs that you can walk through the properties. But that's going to be really state specific, and so in most cases, we're going to be able to make a judgment of the property from what we can see from the street.
Yeah. Now, we'll look at some of your guys' questions here. Tyler had a great question. Are there tax liens on over-the-counter properties too? And yeah, over-the-counter properties can have tax liens. In fact, in some ways, they're even more likely to have tax liens against them sometimes than other properties are. But any property, whether it's owned by the county and is over the counter or coming up for auction, could have liens against it. And so that's why we always look. But the longer a property's been sitting on the books, the higher the chances are it could have liens against it. So yeah, that's absolutely true. Um, is it like regrid? I'm not sure on that one, Marl. It was probably related to something we were looking at there specifically, I'll bet. Okay, let's see, George here. Can you explain more about how you get comps with the GIS map? Yeah, so maps, the main things we're usually dealing with GIS maps are either base maps or layers. And sometimes we deal with both. We play with base maps to figure out what we want underneath. And a lot of times in the layers, you can have, or it could be in a base map. So usually it's going to be layers where they'll have sales information. And so if you're looking at a base map of GIS, if you're looking in GIS mapping, you're looking for layers anywhere there, and for anything that mentions sales. And if you click on that, a lot of times what it will do is it will then put another layer over that map, an overlay, and will highlight all of the sales that have occurred over a set time. And so that's the one thing that's worth looking for, especially if you're trying to find comps on properties, because it'll show you, all the properties that have sold over the last 4 years or something, and it can be pretty handy, and helping you see how old some of the sales are, how recent they are, and what the amount is.
Yeah, kind of add to that. Not all counties will have it set up that way. More and more counties are adding these different tools to it. So sometimes you'll be able to do it that way. Sometimes you'll be able to go into the county and review the sales, from another platform or from a list. So it'll kind of depend on the individual county on what's available, but they can be very helpful. In fact, a lot of areas in Florida have those type of tools built in to either their assessment information or their GIS maps.
Yeah, in fact, Anne and Monica have questions that are kind of related here. Anne's asking, are there any counties in Florida that are up and coming? And Monica's wondering, when does Florida have tax lien and tax deed sales? It's a great question. And so each state is very much, just doing it based on its own law. And so states like Florida's a unique state. It's not really like any other state, but they have a good system in place there where they have both liens and deeds. Their lien sales are held annually, so once a year, and usually in the month of May, I think. And meaning that they just wrapped up, just last month. The over-the-counter stuff is it's probably a good time right now to look at over-the-counter stuff if there's anything left there of it. But a lot of the properties will get purchased up. A lot of liens will get purchased up at auction. Now, in Florida, what they do is if you buy those liens, they have a 2-year redemption period. When that redemption period comes to an end, you would have to apply for a tax deed with the county. And what the county does is they then put the property into an auction, an upcoming auction. And so that's how they have deeds. And it's also why they have regular or more sales and not necessarily just one tax deed sale a year. They actually have tax deed sales every month, and some of them have tax deed sales multiple times every month. And so, in answer to, are there, any counties in Florida that are up and coming? It seems like almost like all of them kind of are up and coming in terms of real estate. There's lots of parts. I mean, we've been in lots of counties there, and you can, in practically every county, there's going to be a corner of the county that's growing, with new construction, or, that has one of these old subdivisions that are starting to fill in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so many of the counties in Florida have moved over to online auctions. There's really just a handful of counties, uh, you know, uh, left that still do live auctions. In fact, that's some of those live auctions is where we'll take some of our students when we do the buying tour and go out to attend an auction. And so, as far as that, really, it'll kind of depend on your capital. There's going to be some counties that are going to be better to invest in if you're looking for land, where they maybe have lots that are selling between, 3 to 5 grand, 3 to 10 grand. There'll be other areas where if you're looking for structured property, of course they'll be combined within that same area, but it'll really kind of depend on what you're trying to go after, in which county is going to work out best for you.
Yeah, really. And the market there is so good that it's just a strong real estate market across the state. And so I don't know if I would necessarily point out, we tend to go where the opportunities are at. And so I don't know if we've got any favorites necessarily. Our favorite is whichever one's holding the auction right now. And so, but there are auctions happening all the time, lots of them, and throughout the month. And so, any given month there are dozens of auctions happening in Florida, and in lots of other states. States like Texas that we were looking at. They have they're up to maybe 20 different counties now, 15 or 20 different counties that have online auctions. If you live in a place like Texas, you can go to live auctions. They do it every month. They have a live sale they do every month there. So um, it all depends on what you're going after, though, like Steve was saying. Um, and let's see. Last question here is from Dave. When you guys feel like the recording will be posted? Well, seeing how this is a podcast, we'll be sure to get it out to all of the students first, and then we'll be using it from there. And so we hope to have it up here within the next couple of days.
Yeah, well, and also because you are a member, you'll automatically get a link from GoToWebinar that'll give you the replay as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So
You can
so so as we
automatically
get
watch it.
done, you can automatically go on it, and then we'll go ahead and post it and send it out with the email to the members this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. When you register for the webinars, you can automatically get on and watch replays. So thank you everybody for joining us here tonight. We have enjoyed we've enjoyed everybody and going through this podcast talking about all the auctions that are happening, opportunities that are coming up. It's a good busy time of the year right now to get involved and participate in some auctions.
Appreciate it, and thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, you bet. We'll see you later.